First of all, Ed, a slightly unusual route for you getting into racing. Just tell us how you came about it.
Well, it was something I always wanted to do from year dot. And when I got to sort of 24, 25, I'd worked in racing, but decided I better go and earn some cash. This is not the easiest job to earn cash in working in racing. So I went to the city and worked for an investment bank for 15 years. And then embarked on this career.
And I guess working in the city, did that sort of teach you to manage people's expectations when it comes to managing your owners and things like that?
Yeah, I think so. It definitely did. And you know, communication is a key thing. I mean, how often do you hear owners moan about not being communicated properly with their trainer? And if you didn't do that in the city, well, you got struck off fairly quickly from your clients. So. And managing expectations, as you say, and yeah.
And this place is fantastic, beautiful, all your own, and just tell us what sort of work you had to do to get it into the state it is in now.
So it was an existing yard. It was a jump yard. We have put in we've put in a new gallop, circular gallop, and we put in 16 extra stables and a treadmill and a swimming pool. The bit behind us was here. There were 35 boxes here originally. We've done a lot of fencing. We've done. You wouldn't recognise the place compared with when we bought it. So it's been a big investment.
When so much work goes into it, are you almost just at the stage now, really? I know you started back in 2010, but it's taken all this time for you to. Okay, now we're done. Let's get on with the proper business sort of thing.
Yes and no. I mean, I think we were quite lucky. We did hit the ground running with the horses we had, and I think our stats as we grew in numbers, our winners grew. I think the facilities have definitely improved it, and we're probably getting a bit more out of the horses. If you look back, you wonder how you ever did it without the facilities we've got now, but it just makes it easier.
Yeah, and some of the horses that you've got, you've kind of bought them off lowly marks and progressed them up to a sort of highish, sort of near the hundreds, haven't you?
Yeah, I mean some and some. We have done particularly well with a handful of horses. You know, I'd like to think we try and get the best out of the horses, but you know, we like to buy young stock as well and bring them on, but we don't rush the job, and it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Markab in the centre, Lady of the Desert on the far side from Star Spangled Banner. Jenky is running on far side. Markab, the overall leader though, powering away, and Markab wins the Betfred Sprint Cup.
And of course, before you started training, you had Sharon Markab, who was a Group 1 winner.
I did, yeah. Well, in my time in the city, I owned a fair few horses, or bits and bobs of. And Markab actually started off training here. We bought him out of France, bought him at Doncaster Sales, and we had a trainer in here while I was still in the city, who leased the yard off us, and we had him here for a bit, and then we moved him back to Henry Candy, where I'd had horses before. Yeah, he ended up winning a Group 1 for us, which was pretty special. I've just got to go and train one now.
So any regrets that you weren't the one training him at the time, if you'd come along 5 years later, for example?
Oh, well, look, I mean, we were in the city, I was in the city, I wasn't ready to leave, and actually the horse did continue training, or in training after I started, but I thought we'd probably hit the peak, and I think I was probably right. Well, I was right. I think he might have won a listed race at Windsor afterwards, but he was a bit in and out, and his swan song was Haydock. Yeah. So I think I was probably setting myself up for a fall if I'd taken him here. I could have done. Yeah. The rest of the owners were either or, but that was a decision we made.
And having tasted ownership, did that give you again a better idea as to how you'd have to deal with owners yourself once a trainer?
Yeah, I think it can be a bottomless pit if you're not careful. So we always look for an exit strategy, and then if the owner wants to take it, he can take it. But I mean, if you just keep horses and just keep running them until they're sort of at retirement age, you're soon going to go bankrupt from a horse point of view. So I always try and set out a plan and It doesn't always work, but it does sometimes, and if it does, then it's great.
Well, that must be hard. Just when you get to that limit, do you just go that extra race? Do you just go that extra bit at the sales? Do you get tough to rein yourself in?
But I mean, it's a bit like being in the city. I quite like buying in the red and selling in the blue, and I'm quite good at selling in the blue because you can always leave a little bit for the next man, and they're probably going to pay a premium if you are selling in the blue and not right at the top, as it were. So, you know, if you sell a horse for good money, you're very, very happy for it to go on and do well for the new connections.
And where would you consider the current climate then, finance-wise? In horse racing, we've just had breeze-up sales, many people complaining that there are too many horses nowadays.
To be honest, since I left the city, I mean, that has been pretty tough.
Yeah.
I mean, the London market, the FTSE, has probably underperformed global markets. Okay, there's extenuating circumstances, particularly now with Brexit, but it has surprised me year after year how strong the sales have been, and how buoyant the bloodstock market has continued to be. Obviously at the top end, it probably will always continue to be so, but then the middle tier and the lower tier would suffer somewhat, and I think you definitely have seen that in the breeze-ups, particularly in the lower tier this year. I think it's been a real struggle for boys, and it'll be interesting to see how the horses in training sales go, and also the yearling sales, especially, you know, if the breeze-up boys have been stung somewhat. It feels to me like it should take a step back.
Yeah.
But it has felt like that for the last 5 years, and it hasn't, which is quite extraordinary. So it is fairly resilient. But I mean, I suppose at the end of the day, if you look at sterling, that's always going to buoy. You know, if you look at, I mean, I know the London property market's it's sort of slowed down, but I mean, you know, the foreign buyers they're buying their horses a lot cheaper. I remember going over to Ireland when sterling was very strong, and you were buying these horses in euro, and you felt like you're getting a proper deal because sterling was so strong and euro was so weak. It's now the other way around. So you're always going to have the foreign money coming in, but is that going to be enough to keep it going?
Talking of foreign money, there's a lot of trainers that are seemingly intent on travelling to France, making advantage of the premiums, places like Jersey, etc. Are you ideally positioned for that here? Is it something?
Yeah, I mean, to go to France, it's a bit of a hike across, you know, with the other side of England, aren't we? But we have been over to France. There are certain trainers that do farm it with the French premium. It makes total sense. Funnily enough, one of our better horses, Lucy the Painter, she's in foal in France. So, you know, with very much that in mind, we'll go anywhere that I think I can win with. I don't like travelling if I don't think I've got a good chance. But you know, we'll go to France, we'll go to Ireland. You know, over here we'll go up to Musselburgh very happily, and you know, 7 hours away if we think we're going to get a winner. And it generally works.
And talking of the horses that you got here, then any that you're particularly fond of, any that you think could rise through the ranks over the next 6 months or so, perhaps?
We've got some nice horses here. One of the most exciting at the moment, and I think he will continue to progress, and I think he will progress over further in time. He's by Ravens Pass, a horse called Bombastic. He was knocking on the door in his 4 runs last year as a 2-year-old. I mean, we weren't going to the sort of lesser tracks. We were at the Newberries and Goodwood and the like, and he was in the frame every time. He had a very nice comeback run and would have needed it at Ascot. And then he went and won at Haydock. Got a very nice horse, Sexy Beast.
Great name.
Great name, well, is it? He's a lovely horse, and he's been running over a mile 4. But I can see him progressing once we step him up in trip. I mean, he's a big horse. He's becoming more and more furnished. No way could he have run as a 2-year-old. And I think he'd be the classic horse. You get his profile right if he goes to the sales in October. Off mid-80s, having won 2 races, you know, you're going to have people from abroad looking to buy him. The jump boys are going to be all over him. you know, the options are very much open with him, and he could get you sort of a reasonable return on your money.
And you mentioned he couldn't race as a 2-year-old. Is that important that you know you've got the time to bring these horses along? Is it, or is it a game now where you feel instant results are what people need?
Yes, and I think a lot of trainers work like that, and you go and buy the more precocious 2-year-olds where you're going to be banging them out from March, April, May. You know, horses like that Sexy Beast are going to be a quality animal, and you have a precocious 2-year-old that goes and wins a maiden at Wolverhampton or Windsor in May. What's it going to be next year? Probably a 65, 68 rated horse that's not worth anything. Yeah. So, you know, whilst one has to take into account training fees and time, I think you have to be patient, because if you are, and you've got to have the right model to spend that time with it, but if you do, your end game, one, you're going to have a nicer horse at the end of it, and two, you could get a half decent return on it.
And you're talking about patience. We've seen a couple of nice looking foals around the place. Is that something you're looking at doing as well, breeding your own to race, or is that
sort of by default when I've ended up with when I've ended up with the mares that I quite like, who have been good enough to breed from? Look, it works here. We're on our own in the middle of nowhere, if you like, and you've got the facilities to do it, and it makes it quite hard work for me, sort of March time on foal watch and what have you. But it is quite fun. It is quite fun, and we have bred a couple of winners, so it is worth it in the long run, I think.
And you talked about each horse having a plan. What's your ultimate plan for the next, I don't know, 2 or 3 years, for example, do you think?
So we'd have between 35 and 40 horses now. I think down here we could easily cater for 60. That would be a very comfortable number for me to get to if we could. And always mindful of churning and turning over the stock, and just looking forward as opposed to standing still. Yeah. But it's a numbers game, and I think financially one really wants to have between 50 and 60 horses to make it work, I think.